Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to Wild Reads. My name is Dave and welcome back to part 2 of the July book haul, or my July book haul. So some of these books were books bought in on our recent holiday to Hay-on-Wye. Some of them are from our recent weekend break to Ripon in North Yorkshire. And some of them I've been sent either by, I've got a couple of books sent by another booktuber, and I've got a couple of books sent by publishers. So let's get straight on with them. Where do I start with? Let's start with these. So I've got a couple of books here that were sent by Emma from Emma's Bookish Lifestyle. I shall link Emma's channel down below. Go check her channel out. She's a lovely girl. We've been doing a couple of buddy reads lately as well. And the first book she sent me is a vintage Red Spine edition of Vera by Von Arnim. And this says Lucy Entwistle and Everard Weymouth are both reeling from recent unhappiness when they meet and swiftly fall in love. Lucy is Weymouth's sweet girl, and to Lucy, Everard is the whole world. The only blot on Lucy's happiness is the shadowy figure of Weymouth's first wife, Vera, who died in mysterious circumstances. I'm getting Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier quite vibes from that. But it's not until the happy couple return home and begin their life of wedded bliss that Lucy really begins to wonder what did happen to Vera. So that's the first one I got from Emma. The second one is one that I've seen doing the rounds on BookTube. This is The Accusation, Forbidden Stories from Inside North Korea by Bandy. This is obviously fiction in translation. And the translator of this is... so this is translated by Deborah Smith, who translated The Vegetarian by Han Kang. And this looks a fascinating read. This truly remarkable book comes from a writer writing at the risk of her own life. The result may well be the most important work of fiction published this year. So this was smuggled out of North Korea and published in 20 languages around the world. The deeply moving stories contained in The Accusation tell of life under the totalitarian regimes of Kim Sung and Kim Jong-il. They are a compelling reminder that humanity can sustain hope even in the most desperate of circumstances. So really looking forward to reading that. Thank you very much, Emma, for sending me those. That was a lovely thing to get in the post. The next book I've got is one from a publisher. This is from Alison Busby. This is a forthcoming thriller that's due out in September, I believe. Tell Me You're Mine by Elizabeth Norbach. Your two worst fears: losing your child and losing your mind. Stella and her boyfriend were teenagers when their 1-year-old daughter Alice vanished during a holiday. Though her body was never found, Alice was assumed to have drowned. 21 years later, Stella is happily married and a successful therapist, but everything falls apart when a new patient walks into her office. The young woman introduces herself as Isabel, but Stella is sure that she is Alice. Fascinating. And this is out on the 4th of September. So that will be, I think that's going to be my thriller pick for next month, but I haven't finalised my August TBR yet, so I think that is going to be my thriller pick. Another book sent from publishers. This is from the wonderful Jen Campbell, who I'm sure you know is a great booktuber and a very successful writer in her own right. This is her collection of short stories, The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. And this has recently been published by Two Roads in paperback form. So thank you very much, Jen. Thank you very much, Two Roads, for sending me this. I shall hopefully get to it. I think I'm definitely going to TBR that next month because everyone seems to have read this apart from me. Next we have, so these are second-hand charity shop finds, mainly from Yorkshire. And we have here, I'll make a nice little pile here so I don't have to do the book lean too often. So the first one we've got is The Cutting Room by Louise Welsh. This says here, oh, interesting. Okay. So it's a paperback, but it's got a dust jacket. This is from Canongate Books. And it says here, it was just an envelope, just a buff-coloured, thick papered document envelope. Straight away I knew it held photographs. I could feel them, the weight, the uniform size. Photos not good enough for an album. 2 thick rubber bands secured the folds, one pink, one blue. Pink for a girl, Blue for a Boy. I pulled the bands off, slipping them tight around my wrist. They caught in the hairs of my arm, swift visions of mad nights. I kept them there, a taut reminder, and slid the photographs into my hand. So this was Louise Welsh was chosen as one of Britain's best first novelists in 2002. I know nothing about this author, so I don't know what else she went on to write. And it says here, The Cutting Room heralds the arrival of an outstanding contemporary Glasgow novel. Its charismatic protagonist is eccentric, witty, and frequently outrageous. An auctioneer by profession, he is an acknowledged expert in antiques, but also considers himself something of an expert in other fields. When he comes upon a hidden collection of violent and highly disturbing erotic photographs, he feels compelled to unearth more about the deceased owner. That looks very interesting, so I shall have to be TBRing that one fairly soon. The next one I've got here is Liars and Saints by Mally Malloy. This was published by John Murray. Yvette Saint-Pierre met the photographer on the beach as her children played, and he offered to take their picture for her husband. Away at war, when he arrived at her house with his camera, the last thing she expected was that he would try to kiss her, but that kiss will haunt her family for generations. Epic in its sweep, intimate in its insight and understanding, Liars and Saints is a story of deceit and loss, but also of deep and abiding human love. By turns funny and profoundly moving, it is a compulsively readable novel that stays with you a long time after the end. That looks really good as well. That's Liars and Saints by Mally Malloy. The next one I've got, I used to own this a long time ago. This is Evelyn Waugh, Scoop. This is published under the Penguin Modern Classics binding. This is a story about journalism, really. So Lord Cooper, the funniest novel ever written about journalism, a romping comedy of errors, says The Observer. Lord Cooper, newspaper magnate and proprietor of the Daily Beast, has always prided himself on his intuitive flair for spotting ace reporters. That is to say, he has not made the odd blunder, however, and many in a moment of weakness made another. Acting on a dinner party tip from Mrs. Algernon Stitch, he feels convinced that he has hit upon just the chap to cover a promising little war in the African Republic of Ishmailia. One of Waugh's most exuberant comedies, Scoop is a brilliant satire of Fleet Street and its hectic pursuit of hot news. So that has been on my TBR for many years, and I used to own a copy of it, and I lent it out and never got it back, something I used to do quite often. So the next one, we've got a collection of poetry by Douglas Dunn, selected poems 1964 to 1983. So that goes instantly on my, I've read a couple of them, they're very good. That will go on my ever-growing now poetry shelf. The next one I've got is The Betrayals, which is a thriller that I didn't get to last year. None of them would forget that week on the wild Norfolk coast. Best friends Rosie and Lisa's families has always been inseparable, but that summer Lisa had an affair with Rosie's husband Nick. And now, after years of silence, she sends Rosie a letter begging for help, a letter that exposes dark secrets. Daughter Daisy's fragile hold on reality begins to unravel. Teenage son Max blames himself for everything that happened that long hot summer, and Nick must confront his own version of events. There are 4 sides to this story. Who will you believe? That looks really intriguing as well. The next book I've got here is a book that I've seen. I keep seeing this in bookshelves, in bookshops, and I keep seeing it on the socials. This is The Versions of Us by Laura Barnett. Eva and Jim are 19 and students at Cambridge when their paths first cross in 1958. Jim is walking along a lane when a woman approaching him on a bicycle swerves to avoid a dog. What happens next will determine the rest of their lives. Yeah, I keep seeing this, and the cover has always intrigued me. So I saw this copy. It was £1.75 in Cancer Research UK. So I thought it was about time that I bought it. It's always been one of those books that's just been on the periphery. The next one I've got is a non-fiction book. This is a history of ancient Britain, a BBC series as well, and it's by Neil Oliver, who's this guy here. And so this will go in non-fiction corner down there, and it looks really good. The next book I've got here is by Canongate. This is Margaret Drabble, The Pure Gold Baby. A story of Anna, a little girl with a luminescent quality, her mother Jess and her community that envelops them. A happy child, Anna is the unchanging core of this journey spanning decades and continents through the lives of those that love her. This profoundly engaging portrait of a family, friendship and the way we care for each other is a powerful reminder, if one were needed, of Margaret Drabble's literary greatness. So, never read any Margaret Drabble before. This one I've got here, I've realised I've got this since I bought it. I've realised I've got a hardback edition as well. This is The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. I think I've held the hardback version of this before, so I won't go into the blurb on this. But I've now got a paperback edition of it as well. Whether I keep both of them in the long term, I don't know. The next one I've got, well, the next two I've got are Tessa Hadley books. I read a Tessa Hadley book called The London Train recently, and I quite liked her and wanted to read a little bit more of Tessa Hadley. So I've got The Past, and I've got Married Love. Unexpected, exhilarating, life-enhancing, said the Times about this. And Zadie Smith said, few writers give me such consistent pleasure. So looking forward to getting into those. The other books that I've got is, these are all books about Oscar Wilde, which I picked up on our recent bookie holiday to Hay. So I have got, and this, I've already got quite a large Oscar Wilde collection. So this is Oscar Wilde, The Aftermath by H. Montgomery Hyde. This was published in 1963. It's got some really good plates in here as well. This will just be a nice addition to my Oscar Wilde library. Then I've got a really old biography here. This is by L.C. Ingleby, Oscar Wilde. This one was published in 1907, so that's a nice little addition. The next one I've got here is a beautiful book. I've been after this book for a long time, and this is The Life of Oscar Wilde by R.H. Sherard, and I've been after this book for about 20 years, and I've said it's a rather battered copy, but it is beautiful. And this is from 1906. It's not in the best condition, so I am considering sending it to a binder to have it rebound and just tidied up a little bit so that it doesn't just fall apart. But that is a great little addition to my Oscar Wilde library. Then I've got The Unrecorded Life of Oscar Wilde by Rupert Croft Cook. A lot of these books go over the same material, but a lot of them have got a few of them have got photos that I haven't seen before, and a few of them have got really good introductory notes that I haven't come across before, and they just give another insight to the Oscar story. The next one I've got is The Importance of Being Constant, a biography of Oscar Wilde's wife. Then we have The Trials of Oscar Wilde, edited by H. Montgomery Hyde, all about the very famous Oscar Wilde trials. Then we have Oscar Wilde by Arthur Ransom, The Fall of the House of Wilde by Emma O'Sullivan. Then we have the definitive Oscar Wilde biography. This is the Richard Ellman book. I've had this book. This is now the third copy that I've owned of this book. Again, lent them out in the past, never got them back. If you are only going to read one book about Oscar Wilde, then it has to be this one. This is the go-to biography. Came out in the mid-80s. It is yet to be beaten. It's just a fantastic biography. I think I've read it about 3 times now, but I just wanted another hardback copy of it. This one I actually bought brand new in, I can't remember, I think this was the Hay Booksellers, and this is a lovely little slip-cased, a selection of his greatest work, and you open it up and it's got, look at this, and you can't really see this, but this is lovely and embossed on the cover, and it's just a beautiful book, and it's got this lovely slipcase as well. Next we have the Wordsworth Classic Edition of De Profundis, the Ballad of Reading Gaol and Other Writings. This I really bought as a working copy, because when I'm going to do some Oscar Wilde studies shortly, and try and get a couple of video essays made about my history with Oscar and why I sort of value him so much and value his writing. The next one is A Certain Genius, Oscar Wilde. This was by Barbara Belford. Another copy of the Picture of Dorian Gray, which I've almost got as many copies of Dorian Gray as I have Howard's End. Then a lovely little, I just bought this for its aesthetic value really, so a nice little leather-bound edition of Oscar Wilde stories. And then we have Oscar Wilde, A Life in Letters, edited by his great-grandson Merlin Holland. Then we have this, which is a folio edition of Oscar Wilde stuff in 3 volumes. So we've got stories, plays and poems, and essays and letters, and these are absolutely gorgeous books, as you would expect from the Folio Society. I've got this set in a slightly different binding, also from the Folio Society, that I've had for many years. Yes, I bought this one brand new from my favourite northern bookshop up in Ripon. This is the Michelle Mendelssohn Making Oscar Wilde. This came out this year. This has got lovely end papers, look at this. Yeah, 2018. There's been a few Oscar Wilde books come out this year, and this was my pick of them really. Hopefully I'm going to get to this one fairly soon as well. Then also while I was up there, while we were up in Yorkshire, I got another copy of Howard's End. This is the Penguin Modern Classic edition from 1972. 1972 was the year I was born, so I wanted that one for that purpose, and I didn't have this copy of Howard's End, and as you know, I'm trying to get every copy of Howard's End that's been published in different bindings. Then I got Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day, because I no longer had this book and I wanted it as a reread. Then one of my favourite books from last year was Rose Tremaine, The Road Home, which I've only got in paperback, and I saw this lovely hardback edition of it, and I really wanted it in hardback because it was one of my favourite books of last year, and I really wanted it in hardback, so it was £1, so a bit of a no-brainer. Also was The Killing of Bobby Lomax, which is from Faber and Faber, and I really wanted this as well. This is set in Canyon County in 1983. Bobby Lomax was the first to die. The bomb killed the prom queen on her own front lawn. Just moments later, one of the nails from the city's second bomb forced its way into the brain of property investor Peter Goodson, killing him almost instantly. The third bomb didn't quite kill Clark Houseman. Hovering on the brink, the rare books dealer turns out to be Detective Sinclair, best hope of finding out what linked these unlikely victims, who wanted them dead and why. But can they be found? But can they find the bomber before he kills again? So set deep in the religious heartlands of America, The Killing of Bobby Lomax follows this troubled investigation as a narrative of deceit, corruption and forgery emerges, with an unlikely hero at its heart, a rare coins, books and manuscripts dealer who could either be a genius or the devil. So this is a beautiful copy. It looks completely unread, but it's a lovely Faber edition of The Killing of Bobby Lomax. Whew, and that was it. That was the July book haul part 2. That is it. I'll be back very soon with another booktube video. So whatever you're doing this week, enjoy your books, and I'll see you very soon. Until then, take care. Bye bye.